Good evening and welcome to the first of two Inside Government shows that are put together by Cuyahoga Community College, and this is our final day of shows. We're going to have back-to-back Inside Governments. This is a show that's shown on Spectrum, Verizon, Fios, as well as ARMA, the Auburn Regional Media Access, and Win 89.1, the college's radio station. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. In our studio, as we try to do at the end of every semester and at the beginning of each semester, we try to have the mayor of the City of Auburn in, and we're delighted to have Mayor Giannettino in the studio to talk a little bit about what's been going on at City Hall, but just as importantly, what's going on with City Council. They had a City Council race a week ago. Talk about the results there. Talk about what's going on with the holiday parade, and we might get in some other items such as Owasco Lake and things that we didn't cover in September. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So great to have you here. So City Council changed. Craig Diego, Republican, won. Ginny Kent was serving her first term. She's not been reelected. Terry Cuddy is returning. Were you surprised that Councilor-elect Diego won?
I honestly thought it was going to be a close election, and it obviously was. There was just a piece in the paper by Robert Harding, close to City Council race in years. Mr. Diego worked really hard. He knocked on a lot of doors, and the people of Auburn have spoken, and we'll do our best to have a smooth transition. I actually had a conversation with Mr. Diego, or Councilor-elect Diego, Thursday before the meeting. We're just waiting for everything to be certified, which we expect to happen sometime next week.
So does that mean that he takes part, I don't know if you've had executive sessions last week or this week. Traditionally, people take the risk that the election is going to be certified and they bring them into executive sessions early on. Is that what you're doing there?
Yeah, so that was part of our conversation. Because it was so close, we were waiting for absentees to be counted. Once it's certified, he will be invited into executive session. We did have one last week. We don't have one this week. I talked to Ms. Haynes this afternoon. And then we'll start onboarding him. We'll have him meet with department heads so that he can get up to speed on everything. And,
so there is that transition. Has that started already where he is meeting with department heads?
No, we're going to wait for everything to be certified.
Okay.
And, I want to just congratulate all candidates on, well-run campaigns. Congratulate and thank Councilor Kent for 4 years of dedicated service to the City of Auburn. She's been our spokesperson on the Watershed Management Council. She'll be missed for sure. But I look forward to working with Councilor-elect Diego for sure.
So clearly a close race. What do you and it's Republicans, two Republicans winning it at the same time has not occurred for decades now. What do you attribute? And it's usually single candidates single Republicans that get in at a time. Democrats, it's not normally the problem. It's Republicans. What do you attribute his particular win to?
Yeah, I think he worked really hard. He knocked on a lot of doors. Take it from somebody who's done that 3 times, myself. People want to hear from the candidates, and I know that Councilor Kent and Councilor Cuddy were out on doors as well. But Councilor-elect Diego started very early this year, and he got his message out there.
So let's switch gears to switching gears, and that's the holiday parade.
Sure.
So the Christmas parade was on, then it was off. Announced about 2 weeks last week that it was not going to occur on Thanksgiving. And why was it originally canceled?
All right, so
walk us through this because we've had Jenny Haynes has been here and Jesse Klein. And it's a progression. So you're going to kind of, unless Rachel May wants to say something about this,
maybe I'll just punt to Rachel May. Yeah.
You will get the last word on this.
So this has been a conversation that has been happening behind the scenes for a few years. There are serious safety concerns, and I don't know if you saw the picture that was shared at the City Council meeting, and I believe in the newspaper as well. Folks coming out into the street. It's very dark. You have these big fire trucks with bright headlights, and the police chief and Sergeant Gilfus, who's in charge of traffic, have raised concerns. Mike Talbot, in charge of Department of Public Works, has raised concerns because once the parade's done, his crew's out there picking up barricades. People aren't paying attention to traffic laws. People are getting aggravated because there's detours. So this has been a conversation that's happened for a number of years.
But do you have that same issue with the Memorial Day parade?
But that's during the daylight.
Okay, so this is purely a night issue, dusk or evening.
Yeah,
Okay.
and there have been serious concerns raised by the police department for a number of years. So our thing was, well, if we're going to do this, we've got to have some type of alternate event. And that alternate event was planned, and the announcement was made, and the people spoke. People were extremely upset
People are
by that.
apparently speaking last week a lot.
Yes,
So,
they were.
So
and,
it's
you know, part
interesting.
of the job is listening to them, right? And you know, you always have to pivot. You have to adapt and overcome. And what we did was, okay, well, look, this is clearly something that's very popular with the people of Auburn. Let's listen to what they're saying, but also listen to our staff and come up with a compromise. And that compromise was to start at 3:30. It will end towards dusk, and hopefully we can keep everybody safe.
So a couple quick questions. One is, was the city council involved in the decision to cancel?
We were kept apprised of it, but you know, this is something that, and this is, you know, you were the mayor.
I know, but I'm not the spokesperson here. So
Right. So what I want to say is, you know, from being mayor, there's a fine line between micromanaging and allowing the professional
I love
staff.
micromanaging,
Right?
so.
And we are a city manager form of government. And when the police chief and the traffic sergeant and the superintendent of public works bring serious concerns, we have to listen to those things.
So the flip side is you had a tight budget, and we'll get into your budget issues in a bit. Do you have money in the budget for this?
Yeah, I think overtime is $5,000.
Okay.
Clearly, we want to watch every penny we're spending. We are in tight budget times. Money was not the driving factor in this.
Okay.
It was safety.
So again, the people have spoken, and I know the Citizen, as you know, has an online poll.
Sure.
The decision to hold the parade is positive. The time is an issue now.
Sure.
So
It's all about compromise. And,
Okay.
you know, people have to understand that we have a responsibility to keep the public safe.
but the bid did want it at night, or at dusk or later, correct?
Correct.
Okay. A general question about downtown in general. So there's obviously this issue of the holiday parade. Tomato Fest is no longer in downtown. A couple of other events have either canceled or just disappeared, whether it's Major Palooza, which has changed its whole operation, or the car show. Is there not the emphasis on downtown as there might have been 10 years ago?
I think 10 years ago, we had to convince people to go downtown. That's not the case anymore. There's a lot of private investment in downtown, and there's a lot of things to do downtown. And things run their course, right? If you talk, Chris Major's one of my best friends. If you talk to Chris Major, Major Palooza ran its course. You know, he did it for 25 years. Same thing with the Tomato Fest. You see a decrease in participation, and you have to pivot on those things. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to balance what's already downtown with city events downtown. You know, one thing I think we have to look at for next year is the Friday night music. I go downtown on Friday nights when we shut off State Street. There isn't the participation that there used to be, because there's a ton of other things to do. So it's a constant balancing act and pivoting.
Which becomes its own traffic flow,
Sure.
and some businesses are not exactly keen on it.
Correct.
Let's shift to another news event in the last 5 days, Micron, because we talked about that when you were here last. You were very optimistic about the impact Micron would have on Auburn and Cuyahoga County. They have now announced there's going to be a delay of at least a year or 2 years. Any concerns?
No, not concerns. I think that a project of this size, delays are inevitable. I think there's still that commitment there. There's already been investment there. Micron has, you know, taken an office in downtown Syracuse.
There's the Lincoln Building. There's a big sign there. They're there.
Yeah, and Brian McMahon still seems optimistic. You know, I'm paying attention to what his comments are. They're undertaking 2 massive projects on both sides of the country.
The other one's in Idaho.
In Idaho. If they're going to focus the resources to finishing that first before they get it all in here, that's fine. And honestly, Guy, I don't think a scaled down project, if that's what they're going to do, is a bad thing. I do worry about the environmental impact of what they were proposing, especially to
But
the
it's
water.
not clear right now that they're scaling back. It's just delay.
Delayed, yeah, for
Okay.
sure. But some of the talk as well, some of the CHIPS money is being redirected to Idaho, so that leads to speculation that possibly they are going to scale back a little bit. And the reality of it is this too, and I can tell you from being involved in discussions, I think Central New York needs a little bit more time to get ready for it
That's
as
where
well.
I'm going with this. So
From
what-
workforce development
What
to
does
housing.
there could be an upside to this.
100%.
Though most people are not looking at the glass. They're looking at the glass being half full, cracked, leaking and dirty because of this decision, but there does allow you a larger time frame to prepare. So you mentioned workforce. What else does this give places like the City of Auburn and Cuyahoga County time to do that you haven't been able to get done if this was going to open in 2027?
Well, the housing conversation, right? You know, we're working with a developer on a potential project on Bluefield Road, 70 market rate housing units. Those things take time. There's constant hurdles that you're working through. You know, the state of New York with the switch from natural gas to all electric, they just delayed that. There are obstacles, and you need time to work through those obstacles. So I'm still optimistic that Micron is going to happen, even if there is a delay. You know, you mentioned the glass half full. The most vocal people are the most negative people, and that's just the reality of it. If I've learned anything in government in the last 10 years, it's the people who that take that mindset are usually the most vocal. The major players that I've talked to, you know, I said, look at this, what do you think about this? And their assessment is it's still going to happen, it's just going to take some time.
So you mentioned one housing project. I wanted to ask you about both. Where does the Bluefield Manor, it's not Bluefield Manor, Bluefield Road project stand right now?
So we're still in discussion with the developer. We're through partnership with Cuyahoga County, able to secure the $1 million infrastructure grant. Talking through, you know, property value. There's wetland considerations because the state of New York has changed.
So there is no date yet for a groundbreaking?
No, not yet. Again, these things take time.
And then there was discussion where the car wash was at the foot of Standard Ave over on North Street, that it was on, that it was off. Is that still that housing project? Where does that stand?
So we Jenny Haynes and I have talked to that developer. They are still interested in developing a project on that site. They are not submitting for the money this year, but we had a great meeting with them. They showed us their portfolio. They're the real deal. When they do a project, they have staff on site to make sure that project is managed properly.
And this is a group out of Ithaca.
Correct. Yep.
I want to go to economic development.
Sure.
Because when you were here, we talked about the city, between you and Jenny Haynes, the city manager, you had offered space for some economic development offices to co-locate on the third floor of City Hall, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What was the result of that?
Yeah, so the offer was to Cuyahoga County IDA, Cuyahoga County Development Corporation, and the Small Business Development Council, along with Auburn Industrial Development Authority, to all co-locate at City Hall. We wouldn't charge them for space. We're trying to get all economic development agencies under the same roof so we can continue to work together collaboratively to embrace opportunities from things like Micron. Unfortunately, CCIDA turned down our offer.
This is the Cuyahoga County Industrial Development Authority.
Correct.
And they're going to the car building.
Correct.
Okay.
Doesn't make any sense to me. It was free office space. We should be working together on these things.
And that's clear because every time somebody comes on, there's a little different permutation.
Sure.
There was an original conversation we've heard that you might get charged for some energy, but at some point somebody said it's not logistically possible to do. You're still required to run your own office.
It's a ridiculous argument, Guy. There is a core group of people on that board that doesn't like the City of Auburn. They are putting the economic development of Cuyahoga County at risk by not working with us.
So when you were on, you were going to have a meeting, I think 2 days later. I think Chairman Anna was going to be there. I think Jenny Haynes was there. What was the result of that meeting?
The result was, the desire by those in elected office is for all of us to work together. There has been no change in position by the IDA to do that, and again, I think that's unfortunate.
So in the end, who is going to go to the third floor of City Hall? Because there is a plan to do
CCDC.
that. Okay. CCDC is who?
Cuyahoga County Development Corporation,
Okay.
Auburn Industrial Development Authority.
So that is a county agency that's coming to the city.
Correct.
It's just not CCIDA.
Correct.
Okay. Who else is going there?
And hopefully Small Business Development Council. They're still working through that.
And they're located currently at the chamber offices
Correct.
at 2 State Street. So by moving all of those items in, the whole goal, I thought, of the city was to try to focus on getting back to an economic development one-stop.
Yes.
So where do those things stand? Because you obviously have one player who's not going to be in the building.
Correct.
Good,
so
bad,
I will
or
tell
indifferent.
you that Mike Miller, who is the executive director of CCIDA, is in constant communication with Tracy Verrier, who is contracted to run ADA for us at this point in time, with Jenny Haynes, our city manager. And
Ms. Verrier was the head of the Chamber of Commerce and CCEDC, Cuyahoga County Economic Development, not the Chamber, I'm sorry, Cuyahoga County Economic Development
CEDO.
Council, when it was at 2 State Street.
Correct.
Before the county cut its funding.
Correct.
Okay.
There are constant conversations. We are all working together, trying to move economic development forward for Cuyahoga County. But again, I don't understand the mistrust of the city. What I would say to legislators,
Not
let me
mistrust
finish.
of the city, mistrust of the city, not by the city. Mistrust
Of the city.
of the city.
Yeah. Legislator Shea, who sits on CCIDA, who's involved in that meeting, he represents the district where the largest economic development project in Cuyahoga County is occurring right now, and that's Cuyahoga Milk Ingredients. If the City of Auburn did not invest to the level that we've invested in our wastewater treatment plant, chances are they would not be able to do what they're doing. So we've shown time and again that we're willing partners. I would love for those on the county legislature to come along and work with us.
And is that really the response? I mean, these individuals are appointed, and it was a split vote to move to the car building. It was not a unanimous decision
Correct.
of that board. Isn't it really up to the appointing officers to say, listen, if you're not going to work with other partners, you need to go?
100%.
Okay. And we're not even going to get into the term limit discussion we ended on last time. I do want to ask about the one stop in one other facet. So Chairman Anna was in your seat 9 days ago.
Okay.
One of the things that he had talked about on this issue of the one stop was possibly putting $25,000 in his draft budget, and this was before they got to the vote of override last Wednesday. $25,000 to facilitate a one stop. Do you know if that made it into his budget proposal?
I do not. I've communicated with Chairman Anna via text. I know he's in the middle of a tough budget process. It's kind of just been, hey, I hope you're doing okay. Let me know if there's anything I can do for you. We haven't discussed
Yeah,
specifics.
if you give him $5 million, well, I want to ask you about that because while it is not the city council's responsibility on this budget, a 12% tax increase that has been proposed will have an impact on not only city residents, but do you think this could have an impact on economic development efforts?
I think it'd have an impact on everything. Municipalities are in tough times. Their costs continue to rise. We can look at our budget, and I've said this time and again, the one remaining thing in our budget is the people who provide the services that everybody counts on. And the cost of doing business continues to rise, not only for municipalities, but for businesses. There's an affordability issue, not only in central New York and New York as a whole, but in this country. The cost of health insurance alone continues to skyrocket. I hear it from private business owners. The price of energy continues to skyrocket. So, we need to try to continue to work together. How can we consolidate services? We've been able to do a few things, but I think the future of local government really relies on consolidation. We need to talk about things like, the fact that we're using our ambulance service in Owasco and Springport and that they've started to contribute financially to that. I think that's a good model of how we can work together.
So I do want to touch on the budget because
Sure.
you're now about a third of the way through your fiscal year. At this particular point, do you see as large a gap as you had last year between revenues and expenses?
So everything seems to be on track right now. We had got some good news about sales tax. Excuse me. They're having monthly budget meetings with all the department heads. We're getting public updates quarterly. So we're taking it month by month.
So what's your concern, though? Do you have concerns right now for what you will have to discuss in April, May, and approve in June?
I think any elected official at the local level right now would be naive if they didn't have concerns.
And
there is so much uncertainty of what's going on, not only in Washington, but in Albany. We've talked repeatedly about the lack of funding coming from New York State. And I don't know what it's going to take.
You can have 2 or 3 minutes to lobby after this with Senator May.
Well, I will tell you this. She is the one representative that I've worked with that gets it and understands that there needs to be increases to AIM funding. That AIM funding is paying for things like public safety. That's our money coming back here. The PET projects are great. We've been the recipient of them, right? DRI. So it was a great thing for Auburn. But if you can't pay your your people to provide services, then it's all for nothing.
So are you optimistic with an election year being next year, where all the members of the legislature are up, the governor's up, that you will get more money from Albany?
Listen.
Usually election year budgets are the chances you get.
The minute you stop being optimistic in local government is the minute you shouldn't run anymore. I lobby tirelessly on behalf of the people of this city. I'm optimistic that at some point the legislature will listen to us. They have listened in the sense that, there has been a temporary bump that needs to be permanent so that we can budget properly. There's a lot of criticism about the North Street project, right? Because it happened in the fall and that it was a political ploy. The reality of that decision was we didn't know how much money we were getting from New York State because the budget was late. And by the time the budget was passed and we worked with our contractor, that's the result of that. We need stability not only from Washington but from Albany.
You're the top Democratic elected official in the City of Auburn. Have you made a decision on who you will endorse next year? Obviously, Kathy Hochul is up for re-election. Her lieutenant governor, which is weird in its own concept, Mr. Delgado, is running. Have you, in your own mind, decided who you will support?
I have not decided who I'll support, and I'll put a lot of thought into that decision. We've talked repeatedly. I am not happy with the lack of action from the governor's office on our water issue. I'm not happy with the inability to fund municipalities properly. So there will be a lot of thought put into my decision for sure, but I have not made a decision yet.
So, great segue. What is the state? The one thing we didn't get to talk about in September, because there's been some news on this with the courts, what is the state of Owasco Lake right now, as far as you're concerned?
Owasco Lake is a tipping point, and I say that repeatedly. I'm consistent with that. We need the state.
So what's your biggest worry?
My biggest worry is that we will have a drinking water crisis. We're doing everything we can on our end. The good news is that the powder-activated carbon system was effective again this year. Kudos to our staff at the water filtration plant. I know that from August until November, they're under a tremendous amount of stress. John West and his team do a great job to make sure that the people of our city can drink water. But we need real action. And the fact that a judge sided with us not once, but twice, and was crystal clear in her decision that the state of New York has been negligent, that the DEC has been negligent, that the Department of Health has been negligent in their duties to protect our drinking water, it would go a long way with me if the governor would direct her agency heads to do the right thing.
So let's take this piece by piece. You were asking the state of New York to do what?
Specifically in that court case was to accept our revisions to the rules and regulations so that we can properly protect Owasco Lake and the watershed.
And the state said what to that request?
Well, the state worked with us for 3 years on it and then did it about face and not only dismantled the rules and regulations that we sent to them for approval. And keep in mind, the City of Auburn and the town of Owasco, who are purveyors of drinking water, approved those rules. Sent them to the state of New York. They gutted those rules before they turned around and arbitrarily told us there was no need to update the rules, even though we updated the rules at their recommendation.
So you challenged them in court?
Twice.
And then you have had, in July, you had a major victory. So talk to us about what occurred in the July court case.
Yeah, the court case is public. I would welcome people to read the judge's decision.
Well, she said the state had blinders on. I believe that was the key phrase I took from what I read of the stories.
It was a scathing rebuke of how the state of New York has handled our drinking water. The New York State Department of Environmental Conservation used to be the regulatory agency it was the benchmark, right? It set the standard for the country. The fact that we have to fight with them on a consistent basis for them to do the right thing concerning our drinking water. In addition to that, the Department of Health. It's unconscionable to me.
So has the state appealed that decision?
Yes.
And where does that leave things?
It's the courts.
Timeline-wise?
I don't have an update on that. We continue to work very closely with our legal representation through Earth Justice. And we just met with them a couple weeks ago. We are in the process of putting another letter together to send to the governor and to lobby for our case.
Do you have in your own mind a thought of why they would have reversed their decision?
And the rules and regulations?
Asking you to do something, then reversing themselves. There usually is some. What's your interpretation of why that occurred?
My interpretation is there's no political will in this state to do what's hard. And agriculture is a very, very important economic driver, not only in this region, but the entire state. I've never viewed this as an anti-agricultural fight. It's a clean water fight. We need to find a way to coexist. And there isn't the political will in Albany, in the governor's office, to do that.
But isn't that like almost all big issues, whether it's gun control or something? If you make a small change, those people who are opposed or who have a vested interest say that's just the edge of the wedge, and if we give in there, they're going to take something else, and they're going to. And I'm not saying take rights away,
Sure.
but they're going to keep chopping into that. Is that the mentality that you can't compromise on anything?
Unfortunately, yes. We had this conversation at work, specifically to health insurance prices, right, and why they continue to skyrocket. It is really the result of 30, 40 years of ineffective governing in Washington, right? Look at the chaos that's there now. That didn't just happen this year. It has been building to that. And unfortunately, on drinking water, there is an inability in this state to compromise.
I want to finish up on one item with water, and then I want to go to what you just talked about. So last year, there was some talk about extending the water line out from the pump house. Can you remind viewers what was being talked about? Yeah,
so one of the recommendations that has repeatedly been brought up to us is to extend the intake pipe into deeper water. I have, in the past, been opposed to that because I didn't want the state to say, well, we gave you X amount of money, you extended the intake line, there's nothing more we're going to do. Because I think the real fix to this is to prevent pollution from going into the lake. But as time goes on, and there's this inability from the state to do what's right, I think we have no choice but to continue to explore that.
And so where do you see a timeline where the council will make some decisions?
So that project is been put on hold a little bit because we have to work on the main transition line from the reservoir behind Highland Country Club into the city. There's some major issues with that line because it's old, it needs some work. So we've got to prioritize that right now, but that main intake line is something that we will continue to explore.
And when will the Highland issue be dealt with?
Seth Jensen and his team are working on that right now. Probably sometime after the first of the year is when we'll have to vote on that.
So you mentioned dysfunction in Albany, you mentioned dysfunction in Washington. We'll get into both of those with Senator May, but Senator Lamondis is running for Congress against Congressman Mannion. Are you interested in replacing him in the Assembly?
Not a chance.
Okay.
I tell everybody, last stop, City Hall.
Last stop, okay. So let me ask you this. Do you see that there are, Democrats put a lot of effort in 2 years ago, or last year, in the Assembly race? Do you think there is a viable Democrat in the district who can win that seat?
I haven't heard of anybody that's interested in running yet, so I guess it remains to be seen.
Our guest has been the mayor of the City of Auburn, Jimmy Giannettino. We want to thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You're always willing to come in and share your views, and we appreciate that. We'll hopefully have you back in February when we return. We'll be back in just a moment with New York State Senator Rachel May for an Albany update. Before we depart, I do want to say a couple of thank yous, if I may, to the staff and students here at CU Community College, specifically Professor Laura Bailey, Jeff Sesniak, and Rick Basha, who make this program work. These students work hard to give you political forums with candidates and also this program, and I appreciate that. As I kind of indicated, we'll be back in mid-February with another season of public affairs programming, and we'll also do the Auburn Large School District Forum in late April or early May. But if you'd like to let us know who you'd like us to have on as guests or to ask questions of, please send them to cozguytho@aol.com. I'm Guy Cosentino for CU Community College. We want to thank you for watching. In the meantime, between now and when we come back, have a great Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Christmas, and New Year's, and we'll see you back here in a few minutes with Senator May, but then again, we'll see you back here in February.